Hello everyone, I'm Zahid from Talks at Innovation Valley, and today we have very amazing guest with us, Sramana Mitra. Sramana Mitra is the founder of 1 Million by 1 Million, a global virtual accelerator for the solo entrepreneurs from all around the world. And the very amazing thing about Sramana is that she guides to the startup founders who are solo and they want to make something big. They want to make some big impact in the world and they don't have investment. So Sramana is the mentor. She will guide you. What is the way to go with the bootstrapping? You know. So without any delay, I really warm welcome you, Sramana, to the show.
Thank you for having me, Zahid. Great to be here.
You're welcome. Savannah, before we move to the topic and questions, that's of course that is about startup and entrepreneurship. I would love to know your story, not just me, but I would love my audience to know your story. I guess you are from India.
I
When
am.
you moved to the USA, from where you got your schooling and
Yeah,
university
sure.
education and all your story and why you
So,
are doing what you're doing.
so let me first and foremost say that I have a real passion for solo and bootstrap founders. Part of the reason is because I've been doing 1 million about 1 million for a long time. We started in 2010, and I've been mentoring entrepreneurs for 20 years. I'm a serial entrepreneur myself. I'll come to my story in just a moment. But I felt that solo and bootstrap founders were really underserved. They were kind of like the stepchild of the entrepreneurship ecosystem. Entrepreneurship ecosystem wanted people with co-founders. They wanted people to start blitzscaling and raising money immediately. And I just don't believe in that way of building companies. I believe you should bootstrap first and raise money later. And it's fine if you're a solo entrepreneur, if you're a bootstrapped entrepreneur, as long as you do your validation work first and then go out to raise money, you have a much higher probability of being successful. That's the point of view that I'm coming from. Now, to answer your question about my journey, I grew up in Calcutta, India, and that was in the 70s and 80s. I left Calcutta in 1989 to go to Smith College in Western Massachusetts for my undergraduate in computer science and economics. And then in 1993, I started as a graduate student at MIT in electrical engineering and computer science. And I was in the PhD program, but you probably don't remember this at this point. But in around 1994, Netscape went public, and Netscape really was the first browser company, and this is considered the beginning of the commercial internet. And all of us who were in the industry, we were students or early career professionals in the industry, we were all kind of woken up by this new phenomenon called the internet. And I took my master's in 95, and I did not stay at MIT to finish my PhD. I went off to do my first startup. So I started my first startup back in 1994 while I was still a student at MIT. And then through the 90s, I did 3 startups as founder CEO, all around the internet and various nuances of the internet. And then around 2000, I started consulting. Around 2005, I started writing my blog. In 2007, I started writing my column for Forbes. And in 2010, I launched 1 Million by 1 Million, which is today, well, it is the first global virtual accelerator for technology startups in the world. Our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue. That is my story in a very short nutshell.
Wow. So, I mean, you are the real thought leader. You are the real, actually, knowledge worker. I mean, worker in the real sense. I mean, on the policy level, on the system level, on the guidance level, on the mentorship level. I mean, somebody who is actually feeding and enlightening the hearts and minds of the youth and entrepreneurs, that actually can make things happen in the world. And really, really, thank you very much for guiding the youth of the world, because the only thing we can bet on is the youth, is the entrepreneurs, because they can make things happen. So I would love you to extend your story. I mean, tell me about your, I mean, uh, why you decided to come into this mentorship specifically to
Yeah.
the startups only. Why you bet on the startup founders? Why not some other sector?
So I'm by DNA, I'm an entrepreneur, right? That's all I've done with my career. I've done some consulting, but I've really built companies. This is 1 million by 1 million is my fourth company. And I've done companies with where I've raised venture capital, a lot of venture capital, et cetera, et cetera. So I know that part. And when I was consulting, I consulted on both sides of the table. I consulted on the startup side as well as on the venture capital side. And I got to understand how the venture capital industry works from the inside. And one thing that bothered me hugely is that when I was working on the venture capital side, I found us rejecting most of the companies that were pitching for investment. And I started analyzing why. And the summary of what I came up with is that venture capital is looking for hyper growth companies. They want to invest in companies which go from zero to $100 million in 5 to 7 years. And at the moment, because of AI, that trajectory is getting even faster. So now people are looking for 0 to 100 million in 3 years. All this is applicable. This kind of hyper growth is applicable to a very, very, very small number of companies. So, those companies that don't have the characteristics of this kind of hyper growth are going to get rejected by venture capital. And the fact is, over 99% of companies fall in the reject category. They're never going to grow at that pace. But if you look at the myth, the hype, the media, everybody is chasing this venture capital storyline. As a result, the first time entrepreneurs, the naive entrepreneurs, the young entrepreneurs, the inexperienced entrepreneurs, maybe they're not young, but they're inexperienced in entrepreneurship, they think that entrepreneurship equals financing, which couldn't be farther from the truth. Entrepreneurship equals customers, revenues, and profits. Financing is optional, exit is optional. If you raise venture capital financing, you will need to exit your company. Because if you raise venture capital financing and you can't find an exit, then you become a zombie company. And that's not considered a success. But if you don't have financing, if you're bootstrapping, all you need is customers, revenues, and profits to build a sustainable business. So the reason I came to this particular problem is that I had started writing my blog in 2005 and my Forbes column in 2007. And I used to get tremendous numbers of requests. I had a lot of readers. I used to write about technology entrepreneurship very early on when nobody else was writing about technology entrepreneurship the way I was. So I had a big readership. And entrepreneurs were coming to me for mentoring, for help. And I wanted to help them. My heart was in helping entrepreneurs. But I didn't have a business model to do that because I was consulting with larger companies, and I was charging $5,000 a day, and entrepreneurs could not afford me in that business model. So I was looking for a way to design something where I could scalably mentor entrepreneurs. And that's when I started this online mentoring, free online mentoring, that we call them free online roundtables, mentoring roundtables. And the 1M by 1M free mentoring roundtables have been going on since 2008. That is the experiment that led us to launching 2010, the 1M by 1M program. And today we've done 718 free mentoring roundtables and over 300,000 people have participated in them from all over the world. When we started, of course, all over the United States were already part of the focus. India adopted 1 million by 1 million very early because our I was writing a lot about moving India from the services based economy to a product based economy, startup based economy, and that happened. We participated in helping India become that. Nowadays, it's very exciting that many more corners of the world are plugging into 1 million by 1 million. Africa being very, very interesting new development in the last couple of years. We've seen a lot of companies come from Nigeria, Ghana, Egypt, Uganda, and so on. So it really is becoming a global phenomenon. And if you look at the corners, the far corners of India, for example, recently, just a few months ago, Manipur, which is a little tiny state in the far eastern corner of India, it's right above Bangladesh. It has a border with Myanmar. There are hardly any entrepreneurs in that area, and there may be a small ecosystem of about 150 people working on tech, entrepreneurship, etc., experimenting, so on. They found their way to 1 million by 1 million. I was thrilled. I was absolutely thrilled to see that happen.
That's really, really great. I mean, I'm going to ask very interesting question now. Uh, I will come to the Indian stories too, but before that, you told me that you also raised from the venture capitalists,
In the
but
past,
then
yeah,
you
but
saw,
not for 1 million by 1
yeah,
million. 1 million by 1 million
yeah,
is funded. I funded it.
yeah, exactly. So before starting 1 million by 1 million in 2000, I mean 2002 or 2005, when you yourself was doing the startup, you raised from the venture capital, but then you observed that there is a lot of myth, hype, media, limelight that perhaps all the startup and entrepreneurship is only just to raise the funds
Yeah.
and you mentioned very interesting insight that 99% startups they cannot raise and they actually don't raise
And they
because
should
they
not
are,
raise. And they should not raise. The most important insight there is they cannot raise, they will not raise, they should not raise.
yeah,
Because I
and
said something else. In what I
and
said something else. Did you notice?
exactly. And yeah, I and that is the point where I'm going to ask the question that when you started this campaign that instead of raising venture capital you should bootstrap. So did the venture capitalists friend of you, they started asking you, hey, why you are denting our business model, why you are convincing the entrepreneurs to bootstrap, because this hits their business model, because when they raise later the investors get small equity because the entrepreneur is already bootstrapped a lot.
Yeah.
So did they uh, kind to make you kind of embarrassed on this point that why you are denting our business model, the venture capital friends?
There are venture capitalists who do not support 1 million by 1 million. I'm not going to name any names, but I know who they are. And so yes, there's a category of venture capitalists who do not like what I do because I am first and foremost friend of the entrepreneur. I keep the entrepreneur's interest in mind first and foremost. But I also have a lot of VCs who do support 1 million by 1 million for the following reasons. Because it is actually good for them if the entrepreneurs bootstrap and maybe work with 1 million by 1 million, become de-risked. Then when the VCs are coming in, okay, the valuation is going to be a little bit higher, they'll get a little less equity perhaps, but they also get a de-risked company, much better validated company, and those are easier to fund than funding something that has no proof point. And if you were surprised at the point that I made, that 99% of um, startups that go for venture capital get rejected. Do you know what is the number for pre-seed? The pre-seed number is 99.8% rejection rate.
Wow. And I once I read, I couple of times I read your post on these numbers, and these numbers are the same. I read somewhere in your post that the number rejection number is 99%. Yeah, that's
That's
right.
right. That's right. So the point is, the more validation you can do as a bootstrapped entrepreneur, the more you become fundable. So if you have aspirations of raising funding, bootstrap first, become fundable, and then go out to raise money. That is the philosophy that we use. Bootstrap first, raise money later. And you must have seen what I say about this. Do not go to VCs as beggars, go as kings. This is the mantra of 1M by 1M. And I've said this all along, is that don't go to VCs with a beggar's bowl. You are going to get trampled.
Wow, that's really amazing line. So now I would ask Sramana, when we talk about the entrepreneurship, people say high risk, limelight, raising, exit, scaling, fast, fast and fast and fast, and a lot of things like that. So you already mentioned entrepreneurship is all about the product, customers, revenue, and profit. Financing is the optional. So, how would you like to define entrepreneurship once again for the new entrepreneurs, that they should not follow the limelight? They should actually delete the old myths about entrepreneurship from their minds.
So actually, limelight is a very different topic, though. I would like to address limelight. Limelight, I do think you should follow, because today distribution is one of the biggest differentiation. So if you do have following, that is immensely helpful. For me, the only reason I have been successful in doing 1 million by 1 million at this scale, I'm sitting in Silicon Valley and I'm working with entrepreneurs all over the world, every corner of the world. Why is that feasible? Because to begin with, I had limelight. I had a blog that was well read. I had my Forbes column that was very famous. And then I started 1M by 1M on top of that platform. And then in LinkedIn started their influencer program around 2014. And in 2015, they named me as one of their top 10 influencers. And that list was number one, Bill Gates, number two, Richard Branson, and Sramana Mitra was number 10. So yes, I have sought limelight, I've had limelight, and limelight has helped me build 1 million by 1 million. I always think about these, iconic marketeers who built immense distribution capability because of what they did with media, with their narratives. So one is Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi is one of the great marketeers of the last 150 years, because he was able to create these icons and really create a brand that everybody could, his audience, the entire freedom movement audience could connect with. And then he managed to, shake the British Empire with that. If you look at Mother Teresa, another fabulous marketeer, the amount of resources that she brought together, she created this persona that was worldwide known, and around that she was able to create a narrative, a movement, and so forth. So limelight is not something you should shun. I think you should seek limelight so that you can spread your message, you can tell your narrative, your story, to get momentum around your message. I have successfully done that. But the myth story is a whole different ballgame. Do not follow the hype and the myth of venture capital. Especially blitzscaling from the get-go is what Y Combinator is pushing, Techstars is pushing, and so on and so forth. Do not go for that. That has very, very low percentages of success. Go big or go home is very bad advice. Bootstrap first, raise money later is much better advice, much more pragmatic advice, and you have a much higher chance of success if you bootstrap first and then raise money later. And you can do it as a solo entrepreneur, no problem. If you bootstrap your company, you're as a solo entrepreneur, and you start getting validation and start building a business, and you bring a validated business out for funding, your chances of getting funded is much higher. That's what we promote, that's what we believe in 1 million by 1 million. So we are very much on the side of the solo and bootstrap founders. If you have a co-founder, no problem, but it has to be a co-founder that is organically with you, not somebody you get off the street. It's best if you have some working history with this person, you know this person. Otherwise, because it's a very high stress environment, startups are incredible. It's like a pressure cooker. So you take a fragile relationship that is not rooted in real understanding of each other. You take that, put that in that pressure cooker environment, that relationship usually breaks, and your startup is going to fall apart because you cannot get along with your co-founder. So I do not believe in artificially forcing yourself into a co-founder relationship. I do not believe in that.
All right. So now the real question starts. When somebody starts to startup or entrepreneurship, the first question is how university student, how a college student, how a young professional, how any person could know that he is or she is born for the entrepreneurship, not for the
That's a
job
very good
in the
question.
long run.
That's a very good question. So the way I approach this subject is that I actually believe that entrepreneurship is not for everyone. It is a very high stress game, and you have to have a mental wiring with which you can deal with this level of stress. And you know it's a certain way of life that is not for everybody. So my take is that you should immerse yourselves. If you're in that stage where you're trying to figure out, is this for me, you should immerse yourselves in case studies. So in 1 million by 1 million, we have a curriculum that is entirely case study based. That's 1M by 1M basic. You can just go in, sign up for 1M by 1M basic, and start doing case studies on a daily basis. And if you just spend some number of months, it could be 1 month, it could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, just immersing yourselves in curriculum and methodology alongside the correct case studies. We teach you methodology. You get a feel for what it's about. You kind of travel in the footsteps of these entrepreneurs who've done it before. You get to hear their stories from their own mouth, and you basically get a feel for what this is all about. And I think it becomes clear as you start doing that, it becomes clear, do you want to do this kind of work in your life? Because there is sacrifice involved, there is stress involved. You will have to let go of a lot of other things in life to be able to do entrepreneurship seriously. And do you want to make those kinds of sacrifices? Those are questions you're going to raise, you're going to have to answer for yourself. But I think the best way to decide whether or not is by just immersing yourselves in the case study. So basically what we're offering you is thousands of case studies, which is like simulating the experience of sitting and having coffee with these high-powered entrepreneurs. All of these entrepreneurs that we have case studies of have been successful at certain scale. Some of them have built unicorns, some of them have built, like 3% $5 million company, 3% $30 million company. There's all these solo entrepreneur. All these different case studies are part of the 1M by 1M program. I just want you to immerse yourselves, experience this, having coffee, lunch, dinner, whatever but you're basically directly from the horse's mouth hearing about their journeys, how they've put one foot before the other. And that will give you a visceral sense of what it's like to be an entrepreneur.
All right. So now the second question is, somebody has finally started that he or she is going to do the entrepreneurship. Now there is another problem. The problem is, Many people are multi-talented. They think I can solve this problem, I can solve this problem too, I can solve this problem too, I can solve this problem too. So how they should choose the problem they should solve?
Yeah. So we have a very crisp validation strategy that we teach in the curriculum, in the 1M by 1M curriculum. You can access the curriculum through premium or basic. And now we also have the 1M by 1M AI mentor, which is Sramana Mitra's digital mind. Basically, it's AI trained on my mentoring sessions, 700 plus mentoring sessions, all my writings, all the courses, everything. The AI mentor understands all of it. So the combination of these pieces will give you the tools with which you start exploring your ideas. Let's say you have 5 ideas that you're toying with. You can apply our methodology to all 5 ideas and see which one has the biggest, most strength. And I don't want you to pursue 5 ideas. I want you to pursue one idea. So the point of taking you through the validation process of 5 ideas is most likely 4 of the 5 are going to get invalidated, and you will be able to pare it down to one idea and then put your next 7 years of your life, next 10 years of your life on that one idea. That's that's the method that we follow. But you don't have to, off the cuff or cavalierly discard ideas. I'm giving you a methodology with which you validate each of those ideas, and my assumption is that some of these ideas are going to get invalidated, and you will emerge with the one that you should be spending a number of years of your life. Now, I did say 10 years. We are in a very unusual point in history where this AI movement is moving really fast, and we don't know what will happen. So my suggestion to a lot of people these days is that if you're building something, try to figure out what happens in the next 3 years. What is happening to your customers in the next 3 years? What is happening? Do you have a business over the next 3 years? And this is a counterintuitive point that I'm going to make. Can you exit relatively quickly? Because there's a very, strong possibility that everything is going to be thrown up in the air if AGI hits the market in the next 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 years, whenever it would hit. And if it hits sooner, then that disruption is going to be sooner. So my, conservative advice to you is that figure out if you can bootstrap to an exit or seed strap to an exit within a reasonable time frame, reasonably small time frame, if you want to create wealth in this period.
Very interesting insights. So, there is a problem, although you already suggested that startup founders should actually bootstrap. But founders, any human being, they have psychological problems, mental problems. They say, I don't have finance, I don't have resources, I don't have a good office, I don't have support from family. How can I bootstrap? How can I all do that? So how the founder can take those first steps and be psychologically strong, that even discouragement from the family and friend circle does not stop him or her?
There are 2 tried and true methods of bootstrapping that we use very regularly in our program. One is bootstrapping with a paycheck. If you have a job, keep the job and start bootstrapping a company nights and weekends. And you're welcome to join 1 million by 1 million. We're the only accelerator in the whole world that will let you work part-time. and do bootstrapping with a paycheck. So that's one way to bootstrap, where you are mitigating risk, you're paying your bills with your paycheck, and still are able to start validating your concept, your idea, your uh, business. That's number one. Number two is bootstrapping using services. So many huge companies have been started in this mode, in bootstrapping using services mode. Oracle was started as bootstrapping using services. You will, by the way, ServiceNow was started bootstrapping with a paycheck by a solo entrepreneur. That's Fred Luddy. The case study is in 1M by 1M. Bootstrapping using services is where you are not spending 18 months building a product while red ink is flowing through your business. You are starting with services contracts, and services contracts can be in a domain where you have expertise. Services contracts can be designed such that you have an upfront payment. So if you have services contracts where you are fulfilling certain milestones, you can start with an advance and you can fulfill those milestones and get paid along the way. You preserve intellectual property in what you're doing. You work with customers to understand their problems and then take that intellectual property and productize it. And that's a tried and true way of building, of bootstrapping without taking all the risk on your shoulder. Now, bootstrapping using services and bootstrapping with a paycheck are both completely feasible and completely proven methods of getting a business off the ground. So I am all in favor of risk mitigation. I don't believe it's, I'm completely contrarian on this topic. Most accelerators are not going to accept you if you are bootstrapping with services or bootstrapping with a paycheck. We will. 1M by 1M will. So the door is wide open. Please come to 1M by 1M and I will be happy to work with you and help you risk mitigate and get your business off the ground in a risk mitigated way. And some of our entrepreneurs have bootstrapped all the way using a paycheck or using services all the way to break even and so on and so forth. No problem. We are very pragmatic about entrepreneurship. Our goal is to enable as many entrepreneurs as possible in every corner of the world to be able to build businesses. And we want to meet you where you are. We're not going to tell you that, oh, you're not serious. If you haven't quit your job, you're not serious. No, we understand. We have empathy for your situation. You may have responsibilities. The bills have to be paid. So if you pay those bills by bootstrapping with a paycheck, if you pay those bills by bootstrapping using services, we have absolutely no problem with that. And we encourage that.
Right. So I have two questions about 1 million by 1 million. One, is this a paid service? One second question is, do you also fund the founders, or what is your overall model?
Yeah.
Tell me more about 1 million by 1 million.
Yeah. So 1 million by 1 million is a paid program. There's some free tiers to it. There is a free mentoring roundtable that happens every week. And all entrepreneurs from anywhere in the world are welcome to come and talk to me, pitch their business, and get a strategy audit from there. And that is for free. But you can only do that once. But if you want to work with me on an ongoing basis, you have several options. You can start using the AI Mentor, which is $30 a month. You get 3 messages with the AI Mentor for free, and then it's $30 a month for unlimited conversations, 24 by 7, 57 languages. So whatever language you want to work in, the AI Mentor can work with you in your language, no problem. Then we have the curriculum that is available for $99 a month. That curriculum also includes access to the AI Mentor. So 1M by 1M Basic includes curriculum and the AI Mentor, and that is $99 a month. Then we have 1M by 1M Premium, which is the full acceleration program. That is curriculum mentoring. This is weekly mentoring in web conferencing systems. So we use Zoho right now for web conferencing. We've used in the past Zoom, WebEx, etc. At the moment, we're using Zoho, but you get on a weekly basis, you have direct access to me personally. Plus, you have access 24/7 to the AI mentor that is also included in premium. And then investor introductions is part of the premium program. So we work with hundreds of investors, and we've helped our entrepreneurs raise a lot of money. So we are not at all against venture capital. And as I told you, there are many VCs who love working with 1M by 1M because we send them deals that have already been, fleshed out. They have been validated. They have customers. They have some understanding of how they're going to go to market, etc., etc. And investors love that de-risking. So we work with investors, and we believe that there is a very important phenomenon that you have to keep in mind, which is investor entrepreneur fit. And so, not all investors invest in all things. There's geography, there's sector, there's business model, there's all kinds of points along which investor introduction fit is determined. So we will send you to investors who are likely to work with you, to want to work with you, to see your projects. So we don't fund companies ourselves, but we work with a large community of investors. And we, in one afternoon, I could introduce you to 30 investors and you can get started, basically. That's how the 1M by 1M program works. There's another way to access the curriculum, which is Udemy. Udemy has close to 100 of my courses as, modules, basically course modules. So the entire 1M by 1M course curriculum is available in basic and premium. But also Udemy has many of those modules available as short courses. You can also start there.
All right. That seems very perfect model. And the good thing about your model is that, any kind of startup founder can take it, because, for example, if he cannot afford the premium one, he can go to the second
Yeah.
layer, and then, or the third layer, or
Yeah, mentor
maybe,
is just $30 a month. That is nothing, right? You can, for
yeah,
24/7 access in 57 languages, it costs nothing. You can start there.
exactly.
And
So
it's very good. It's working really well. The AI mentor is working really well. So if you are looking for a co-founder, if you're, let's say you're solo or bootstrapped entrepreneur looking for a co-founder, make me your co-founder. Use the AI
all
mentor and make me your co-founder.
So, since I am asking questions for the aspiring entrepreneurs and startup founders, I will ask one thing more. There are traditional incubators and accelerators in every country, in Pakistan, India, or USA. So, when we talk about the incubator or accelerator, what these two spaces actually do? Is it necessary that when we talk about the incubator or accelerator, they are incubator or accelerator because they fund the startups, or no? What
Not
is the
necessarily.
criteria being? Yeah.
Not necessarily. There are some accelerators, some incubators that take equity. I am of the opinion that doing a priced round where you are actually parting with equity very early on, that equity is very expensive. If you are giving up 15% of your company for a very small amount of money very early on, that dilutes you. And that's not a good way to incubate yourself, or that's the best way to raise money early on is actually as convertible debt. You've heard words like safe notes, or this is basically a debt. It's not a priced round. You're not giving up equity until you have a price, you raise a priced round, and that's when you actually start giving up equity. We are very big believers in preserving equity. 1 million by 1 million does not take equity. We incubate, we accelerate, but we do not take equity. You keep 100% of your equity, and it's a very important feature of the 1M by 1M program. This is what differentiates us from Y Combinator, Techstars, and any number of other incubators and accelerators around the world that insist on taking equity. And they sometimes they give very little money, $20,000, you know, $50,000, and they take a lot of equity, and that's a very bad idea. Please don't go about giving up a lot of equity to incubators and accelerators. The other point that you should keep in mind is that the truth is, because these companies are trying to take equity, they want as much validation as possible early on. So they have high rejection rates. Y Combinator has 98% rejection rate. Y Combinator gets a very large number of applications, and they reject most of those applications because they want companies that have the maximum chance of their equity being valuable. The equity that they're going to take, they want it to be valuable, and they want, if you can bring them a validated business, they would like that much more. So conceivably you could work with 1M by 1M first during your early incubation stage without giving up any equity, and then apply for Y Combinator with a validated business. Your chances of getting accepted is going to be much higher. We work with pre-idea, pre-revenue, pre-product, pre-repeatability, all kinds of startups. There is no, if you don't even have an idea, you're just starting to think, okay, I want to start something. I may want to start something. I don't even know if I will start something. You can start working with 1M by 1M. That is the beauty of our model. And the fact that we do not take equity, we are not forced to look for entrepreneurs who have the maximum chance of success. We have truly democratized entrepreneurship education, incubation, and acceleration on a worldwide scale. And we are the only one who have been able to do this. You're on mute.
So, Sramana, that's really amazing. Do you receive such kind of requests and comments from the founders that why you are paid? Because most of the startup incubation centers and accelerators are kind of free of cost, or do you find these comments, and how do you?
If there are those comments that, if people can self-select, if you don't want to pay, you don't want to pay. We are a business, I think entrepreneurs are not stupid. They understand the trade-off between a large chunk of equity versus no equity. And I think people are becoming more and more savvy about the value of preserving ownership. And at the end of the day, $1,000 is a very, very low fee for 1 year. $1,000 for 1 year membership into the program is a very affordable price point in pretty much worldwide.
All right. And are you doing it just online, or are you doing it kind of hybrid? I mean, some on campus too?
100% virtual. We are a 100% virtual global accelerator.
And what is the particular reason why you did not go as hybrid?
It's not scalable. We want the whole point of 1 million by 1 million was to democratize entrepreneurship, education, incubation, and acceleration. And it was not possible to work globally with every corner of the world if we had to do physical venues in every place. It's not possible. The investment that it would require is huge, and it's just not possible to do it. I mean, if you look at, how much coverage even the entrepreneurship organizations that have a lot of physical presence in different parts of the world, it's nominal. The coverage is nominal, whereas our coverage is basically the entire globe. We work with entrepreneurs all over the world.
All right. I listened you in start. You mentioned something like narrative and story. And I listened these two words from many mentors. Tell me, Sramana, when someone is starting his entrepreneurship journey or startup journey, what is story? What is storytelling? What is narrative? How the startup entrepreneurs, they can build their narrative and story? Give some tips on this.
Yes. So,
and why it is necessary.
Narrative is necessary because at the end of the day, you have to orchestrate resources to build anything. You have to orchestrate people, you have to build a team, you have to orchestrate customers to believe in what you're building. Maybe you have to orchestrate investors, you have to orchestrate the media, you have to basically get a lot of people to believe in what you're doing. And that is best done with really good storytelling. And the story that you tell about whatever it is that you're doing helps people create something that they can actually touch and feel, even if it's psychologically touch and feel. But it is that story is what lets you orchestrate all these resources around a particular mission. So, 1 million by 1 million is a great narrative, right? Well, the reason I have come this far is that it is a powerful narrative that I'm trying to educate, incubate, and accelerate entrepreneurs at scale around the world, in every corner of the world. And I've designed everything around that particular mission. It's a really powerful storyline. So you have to find your storyline around which you can get people to believe in you, get customers to believe in you, get your team to believe in you, and so on.
All right. And what is the way for the new entrepreneurs to get their first customer, to get their first 10 customers? That is very hard. And even before that, what is the best way to for the product that actually solves the problem? I mean, to for the I don't remember the terminology you guys use.
The
Market fit,
terminology,
product market fit.
the
Yeah.
terminology that you need to be aware of, first and foremost, is positioning. Positioning drives everything. Whether you will ever reach product market fit or not is driven by positioning. So if there's one discipline that you need to master, it is positioning. And positioning will get you to product market fit. Positioning will get you to repeatability. Repeatability is a very, very important goal target, because if you want to scale at a very high, very fast pace, the only way you can do that is by figuring out a cookie cutter way of repeatably acquiring customers and building revenue. That is repeatability, and repeatability is at the heart of all fast growth companies. And positioning is at the heart of product market fit, it's at the heart of repeatability, it's at the heart of building a great company. So keep that in mind.
And what is positioning? New entrepreneurs, startup founders, they don't know. They just came directly from the university to the entrepreneurship world, and mostly the universities just teach theory.
Positioning is, what problem are you solving for which customers? And what is the very specific, precise way in which you go about doing that? So, what customer is a very complex question. You may have heard of these terminology like ideal customer profile. Ideal customer profile is a particular customer. It could be a particular job title inside of certain kinds of enterprises. It could be, it could be a certain demographic. If you're doing B2C, it could be a dark-haired woman with dark eyes, dark skin, and that's the kind of ideal customer that you're going after. And that gives you very granular demographic feelings about what is the target customer. It could be age group, it could be in B2B, it could be a particular vertical. Like, your solution is only applicable to manufacturing companies, and your solution is only applicable to the VP of inventory management in manufacturing companies. So there's, get as granular as possible, as precise as possible to define who is the target buyer and what problem does that target buyer have, that target customer have, that you can solve to deliver value and for which you will get paid. This is positioning. And I just gave you a bunch of examples and so forth. Positioning is really complicated to get very precise about what is the precise repeatable customer and what is the precise repeatable customer problem is a very, very complex thing to achieve, which is why so many
Right.
companies fail.
All right. So, you know that many times we listen, it is said that the founders should validate their problem solution. They should validate what actually they are solving. Is it necessary to validate the problem and solution even when somebody is starting something that is already being
Yes.
sold in the startup world? For example, if somebody is just selling the water or the bread or the food, they are very basic things. So what actually needs to be validated? Because there are certain problems that are real core problems that they need a solution. So when we talk about the validation, what to validate? The problem is up. The problem is absolutely clear, and the solution is absolutely clear. So what to
Well,
validate then?
Well, if the problem already is very clear and there are already solutions in the market, then the thing that you're going to have to validate is how do you position competitively into that market to bring a new product in there? What is the justification? If the problem is out there and the problem is already being solved, then why should you have any justification to enter that market? That's what you have to validate.
So you mean validate the business model? Maybe that is a delivery, different delivery method. That is a
Could be
price.
anything. There needs to be differentiation. There has to be differentiation. Differentiation could come in many different ways. Differentiation could come in like you're solving this problem for a particular segment. So let's take your water example. Um, there is water, there's plain water, then there is sparkling water, there is flavored sparkling water, there's flavored water, there's all kinds of possibilities in the beverage business. So if the problem is to quench people's thirst, there are many different ways people are doing that, and that whole industry has lots of players. Do you have something that is particularly interesting where you can start a new brand that the market is going to accept, new product that the market is going to accept? That is what you have to validate. And why? What
Right.
is, maybe it's something that it's an after exercise drink, that it's water with electrolytes, it's like Gatorade, for example, is water with electrolytes, water with minerals that you drink after exercise. So that starts to narrow down your target market into people who are exercising. Maybe it's sold through gyms, stuff like that. So there's whole, discipline of differentiation. Competitive differentiation is one of the disciplines of positioning.
So now I will ask three questions one by one, but I will just give you the overview of the three questions. There are three things, the startup founders, it is usually said, I came to know about that. They must know about they should have their business model, their financial model, and one other thing was, yeah, unit economics. Tell me
Yes.
how the startup founder can do all this
Unit economics
one
is
by
really
one.
important. Unit economics is really important. So, business model is how you make money. And that is super important because you are in business to make money. There's no other reason to be in business. You have to make money. Otherwise, you're going to go out of business and end the story. You don't want that. You have to be sustainable. So business model is the model with which you get paid. And business model could be, your example of selling water. Well, somebody buys the water and pays you for the water. Somebody buys apples and pays you for the apples. Somebody buys your software and pays you for the software. Somebody subscribes to your software as a service on a monthly basis. So these are all different variations of business model. Unit economics is to make sure that what you're charging covers the costs of what it takes to fulfill that order and leaves margin enough for you to have a viable, sustainable business. So these days, if you're trying to sell an AI product, you have to build in the cost of AI compute, which is not inexpensive. It is non-trivial. So you have to make sure that how much you're charging covers the cost of the compute that you're building on top of and leaves you enough margin to build a profitable business. And the example of water or apples, well, there is a bottle. There is, if you're doing fragrant water or some kind of flavored water, you have to pay for all of that. You have to pay for the bottling. You have to pay for the syrups that are going to provide and so forth. So that there is a cost of goods sold. You have to take the retail price minus cost of goods sold, and you have to make sure there's margin, and then that gives you a good unit economics. The reason unit economics has become so top of mind in discussions is because of because of the bad habits of the venture capital industry. There has been customer acquisition at all costs at negative unit economics. And this has been a lack of discipline that has been practiced by the venture capital industry, and it has created a lot of long-term loss-making companies that never become profitable. And that's why people are very careful nowadays about funding things that have negative unit economics. And if you're bootstrapping, don't even think about negative unit economics, because you're going to go out of business in a nanosecond. So negative unit economics is a very bad thing.
All
Now,
right, yeah, and I came to know about the Uber story, Amazon story, and the Meta story. I mean, these are the startups who were, in loss. They were burning cash a lot until for so long, for many years. I guess Uber was burning the cash for more than 10 years. I
and
guess.
that's happening. That's still happening. There are a lot of, I mean, you look at OpenAI, look at all these AI hyperscalers. They're all burning a lot of money. So the venture capital industry does let you build companies while making losses, but making losses and having negative unit economics are not the same.
I'm sorry to ask, but by the way, why venture capitalists burn so much cash? I mean, what is the point? I mean, after all.
Well, this is a very long answer to your question, but I'll try to explain. So, venture capitalists raise funds from limited partners. These are investors who invest in venture funds, and the venture capitalists, who are the general partners who are actually managing that money, get paid 20% of that, actually 2% management fee, and depends on what kind of carry, which is the profit sharing model and so forth. So it really depends on what are the terms in which they have raised money. But there is a management fee and there is a carry, which is the profit sharing model. Now, if there is a very large fund, then the management fee, which is a percentage of that fund, is very high. So before they have to perform anything, they're getting paid a lot of money. So there's been this tendency in the industry to raise very large funds. And if you have a very large fund, then you have to start investing a lot of money in each company. Otherwise, you can't manage that fund. Investors don't give you money to sit on them. If investors are investing in your fund lots of money, you have to invest that money into startups. Otherwise, you sit there and nothing happens. That's not acceptable. So they want to put in a lot of money in these companies. They want them to burn through that money and grow really fast. Now, in some cases it has worked. In some cases it hasn't worked. For Uber it has worked. Amazon it has worked. And in a lot of cases it hasn't worked. If you look at The industry, there are so many quote unquote unicorn companies, billion-dollar valuation, multi-billion-dollar valuation, that have gone out of business because they were not able to sustain the growth and deliver real fundamentals.
Many times I tell you something very interesting. Many times I assume this venture capital model, like I give an example, that it is just like that there is a founder who actually he has a kind of mango tree that is very very tiny, and there is an organic process. After certain number of years, that tree will start to give the mangoes organically. But what
Right.
happens in the venture capital is they have a very tiny tree, and now what they do is actually they buy mangoes from the market and put all those mangoes on that tiny tree, and most of the times that tiny tree actually collapsed with the weight of those mangoes
It's a
because the
good
roots are not
analogy.
there.
I haven't heard this before, but it's an interesting analogy.
Yeah. So
There is
do
a
you agree? Do you agree this is kind of artificial
what
growth? I mean, just like you
what,
take
what
a
I
baby
There is a
with.
terminology that I use for this, and we
Mhm.
have tons of case studies of what we call death by overfunding. There's a lot of companies that get killed by death by because of death by overfunding. Overfunding often kills companies. It's a very common phenomenon. So be very
And
careful about overfunding companies.
somewhere you mentioned, Sramana, somewhere you mentioned that when a startup raise capital, they have to exit. But why? It
Because
is it necessary?
yes, it is necessary because remember, the limited partners who are investing in venture capital funds are giving money to those venture capital funds to invest in the startups, right? So venture capital funds invest in the startups keep building the company, and at some point when the startup exits, that money gets returned in with some multiples, with return on investment to the venture capital fund, and then the venture capital fund then returns money with additional with multiplication of that money to the limited partners. That is how the venture capital business works. So if you don't exit the startup, nobody else gets paid. Investors invest for return on investment. They are investing to make money. And the way this business, the venture capital business works is the VCs invest, the company gets to an exit, and they get back their money multiplied 5x, 10x, 2x, whatever. But that's how the business works.
And what happens with the money if the startup is, collapsed and failed? For example, Byju's
Money
gone.
gets
And what
lost.
about the money?
The
They pay
money gets
back or not?
lost. The
Money
money
is
gets
lost.
wasted. The money gets lost.
And founder is not responsible
The founder is not responsible.
in all kind of
I mean, the founder
investment.
the founder has bad reputation, obviously, because if you've lost a lot of money for your investors, that those investors are going to be shaky about investing in you again. But people also, um, you know, companies fail for many reasons. Market assumptions don't pan out. All kind. Baiju's is a particular example where there's fraud involved. So that's a different story. That entrepreneur is going to have a hard time raising money again. Although we have seen entrepreneurs who've created a lot of fraud and still been able to raise money. But the point is that if you have made money for your investors are willing to give you more money to do another company again. But there is actually a very interesting nuance of this, which is worth pointing out, is that if entrepreneurs see, I mean, if investors see, if VCs see that you've made a real, sincere effort, but your business has still failed because of certain market dynamics, that there were some, things that you assumed would happen did not happen, or something somehow or the other you failed, but you learned and you were honest, you made a sincere effort, people will invest in you again.
Wow. So, I mean, just my thoughts. It means overall what I perceived is venture capital model is 99% not successful. There is a kind of gambling, what I guess. Just a
Nine
hint.
out of 10, 9 out of 10 VC funded startups fail.
Fail.
9 out of 10
My God.
VC funded startups. First and foremost, 99% of companies that seek venture capital do not succeed in raising money. And of those, that the 1% that succeeds in raising money, 9 out of 10 fails. This is
Yeah.
the business.
Two very, very important two percentages. Two numbers are very important. The one is, out of 100 applied for the funding, 99% don't get funding, they are rejected. And out of that 1% or less than 1% who are funded, out of those 1%, 90% again fail because
That's
of
right.
this venture capital model. And what I guess is, the problem is the pressure, the hyper growth,
Yeah. Hypergrowth is
artificiality.
really hard. Hypergrowth is not a natural state of business. Hypergrowth is really hard to achieve.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. We can just take another analogy. A child takes 9 months to take birth.
Yeah, you can't
So you
compress
can,
that.
yeah, you cannot just download it in within 1 month or within 3 months. No, that's not possible. Amazing. I have a lot of more questions. I don't know if you have the time, but I have a lot
I
of
have
questions.
to go. So we've spent a very good amount of time. You've asked very good questions. We can do it again in a
So
few
how
months.
many?
Is that good?
Okay, great, great. So how within how many minutes I should close it, and then we will complete the recording?
Uh, Within another 5 minutes max.
Great. Okay, we will close it 5 minutes, and I will take edge of this. I will take maximum benefit of it for my audience. Great.
Okay.
So there is a point in startup sometimes, maybe every founder face it. There is a pressure. There is a psychological pressure from the friends and family and society and overall. When people ask you as a founder, hey, what about your venture you started 5 years ago, 7 years ago? Hey, it's been 8 years, it's been 10 years, but you are nowhere. I mean, that is a very hard point in the life of a founder. How to face that pressure?
Well,
Or
I think if the best way to face that is keep building revenues, keep building customers, revenues, and profits. And to answer that question is like, yeah, venture is going well. We have, customers, we have revenues, we are a profitable company. And that's a very good answer to that question.
so,
Now, if you have
what?
taken venture capital in that process, that's a different answer because if you are 7, 8 years into a venture, you have venture capital in the business and you're not growing very fast and you cannot raise more money, that becomes a zombie situation. That
I
is
was talking about the bootstrapping, not
the
venture
bootstrap.
capital.
Bootstrapping is no problem. Bootstrapping, 7, 8 years in, you have customers, revenues, and profits, you are a success.
Great, great. So, Saramana, probably this will be the last question. What are the do's and don'ts for the new entrepreneurs and startup founders, the first time founders?
Yeah.
What are the
So
do's and
the,
don'ts?
the overriding first thing that you should keep in mind is do not chase investors before chasing customers. You're going to have very limited bandwidth, very limited resources. That bandwidth and that resource should be focused on chasing customers, not investors. This is a problem. This is a mistake I see over and over again is entrepreneurs are chasing investors first and not chasing customers. Well, investors are going to ask you, what about customers? And you don't have an answer to that question. So you should be chasing customers, not investors. And if this customer situation is going well, then you can handle investors. But you have to focus on customers. So remember, entrepreneurship is customers, revenues, and profits. Financing is optional, exit is optional. Bootstrap first, raise money later. Do not go to VCs as beggars, go as kings. So do not mindlessly chase investors. That is very, very, very important. And intensely chase customers. Intensely chase customers. Remember,
All
position
right.
is very important.
Very, very nice. And your comments and your actually your message reminds me a message from the founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos. He said, obsession with the customer. Although that is the guy he raised a lot,
It
but
is
there is
really,
something yeah, he said that be customer centric,
yes.
be have the customer centric, and they claim that they are the customer centric company.
They
So,
are. They are very.
Shramana, yeah. So, Anna, really, really insightful conversation from your side. I'm really thankful to you for sparing the time for my show. And trust me, I learned a lot. And I'm sure that my audience will also learn a lot, which includes, the startup founders, the entrepreneurs, and sometimes the education community too, and all
Yeah.
the business community.
And
Yeah.
also the
So,
aspiring founders, we must never forget about the aspiring founders, the aspiring entrepreneurs, because you know I was looking at some numbers. Maybe a year and a half ago, India had about 95,000 tech founders. Right now, there are like 220,000 tech founders. So there's probably, if there are 220,000 tech founders in India right now, there are probably a million or 2 million aspiring founders. And you have to also cater to them.
wow. And Sramana, I'm really thankful to you for creating this opportunity for those aspiring entrepreneurs, because in this world of which is over, sometimes I say this is over commercialized world without humans being human centric. In such world, thank you for creating this opportunity for the aspiring entrepreneurs where they can learn from the mentors like you, either free of cost or very very minimum cost. That's really really amazing. So thank you for joining the show. Hope we will talk again soon.
Thank you for having me, Zahid. You take care.